Good morning, children. Today we are going to begin with the explanation of the lesson 4.2, The Luncheon by William Somerset Maugham. The type of the text is story. It's a short humorous story written by William Somerset Maugham. From the title, we understand that the story revolves around the luncheon. The luncheon means a light snack. But in the story, this light snack turns out to be an abundant, lavish, and expensive meal. In the story, we have two main characters. One is the author, and the other character is the woman. This woman calls herself an admirer of the author. And as she calls herself an admirer of the author's work, this woman wins the author's favor. And she asks the author to meet her at a high-class restaurant. With a touch of humor, William Somerset Maugham exposes the false motives of the modest eating habits of this lady. Throughout in the story, the lady tells that she has very modest eating habits, but in turn orders expensive and very lavish dishes to eat. So, very humorously, this entire incident which happened in the life of William Somerset Maugham has been explained by him in this story. I'm very sure, children, you're going to enjoy this story. So, let's begin with the introduction. Let's first know about the writer. William Somerset Maugham was born in 1874 and he died in 1965. Was a distinguished British playwright, novelist, and a short story writer. So, William Somerset Maugham was a very distinguished means very prominent, very eminent, very well-known playwright. He used to write plays. Along with it, he used to also write novels, and he also wrote short stories. He was among the most popular writers of his era. Era means time. Of his time, he was considered as one of the most popular writers and reputedly the highest paid author during 1930s. In 1930s, he had gained a reputation and honor of being highest paid author. His work is characterized by a clear, unadorned style, cosmopolitan settings, and a shrewd understanding of human nature. So what are the special features of his writing? What are the prominent features of his writing? The first one, it is he used to write in a clear, unadorned style. Clear means very easy to understand. Very clearly he used to state his points. Along with it, he used to write very in a simple manner. Unadorned means very simply, that everyone can understand what he wants to convey. Cosmopolitan settings, the plots of his stories, of his novels, they had cosmopolitan settings. Cosmopolitan means very worldly, very global settings. And a shrewd understanding of human nature. And through his writings, you come to know that he had a very clever and very sharp understanding of human nature, that how human beings are and how is their nature. Most delightfully means something which gives you great pleasure. Humorous narrative, The Luncheon. The Luncheon is a very delightfully humorous narrative, a very humorous story, which is going to give you a great pleasure. It's a slice of life story about Maugham's luncheon date proposed to him by a woman whom he hopes is a supporter of his art. So Maugham feels that this woman is supporter of his art, likes his writings, is a follower of what he writes. And that is the reason why Maugham accepts the lady's proposal for a luncheon. And that is how the story begins. So let's um, go to the lesson and let's understand what is the story all about. Before we begin, children, I wish to tell you that we would discuss these questions when we do the English workshop. Right now, we are going to focus only on the lesson. I caught sight of her at the play in answer to her call. So the writer begins by telling us that he had gone to see a play where he caught sight of the lady, where he saw this lady. And in answer to her call, and how he spotted this lady at the play, the reason is that the lady herself had called the author. I went over during the interval and sat down beside her. Now, it was not possible for the author to go and meet the lady immediately. So, as the play was going on, and therefore he went to meet the lady during the interval. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. And the writer says that it was long back he had met this lady, and he didn't even remember the lady's name. If someone had not mentioned it, he would have not recognized the lady. She addressed me brightly, and but the lady remembered the writer very well, and that is the reason why she was talking to the writer very cheerfully, very lively. And what did she say? Well, it's many years since we first met. How time does fly. We are none of us getting any younger. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. And the lady told the writer, and whatever she told, we come to know that they had met long back. It was many years ago they had met. And she says that how time does fly. Time flies means time seems to pass very quickly, and everyone's age had increased. And therefore, she says that none of us are going to get any younger. And she also asks the writer whether uh, he remembers the first time they had met and how he had taken her for a luncheon. Did I remember? And the writer asks this question to himself whether he remembers the luncheon date which the lady was talking about. And after thinking for a while, he remembers the incident which took place 20 years back. Let's read it. It was 20 years ago, and I was living in Paris. The writer was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment and I was earning barely enough money. So he lived in a very small apartment, and his earning was also very uh, was enough for his needs, which could he used to earn only that much money which would satisfy his needs. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. This lady had read the writer's book and she had written a letter to the writer. I answered thanking her, and the writer had replied her thanking her about her views. And presently I received from her another letter saying she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. The lady had written the second letter, and in the second letter, she had expressed her wish to talk to the writer because she was passing from Paris. But her time was limited, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday. And would I give her a little luncheon at Foyt's afterwards? And in the letter, she had also told that she didn't have much time, and it was only on Thursday when they could meet. And she had also expressed her desire to have a luncheon at Foyt's. Foyt's is a restaurant, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. So Foyt's was a very expensive restaurant, and the writer had never thought of going there because it was beyond his means, that is, beyond his budget or income. I had 80 francs, gold francs, to last me the rest of the month. He had to manage his expenses for the entire month, and the money which he had was only 80 francs. And a modest luncheon should not cost more than 15. And he knew that a sumptuous luncheon would not cost more than 15 francs. If I cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough after spending this 15 francs and cutting on his coffee. That is, if he cuts on his coffee, that is, he does not drink coffee for 2 weeks, the money which he would save, he could manage well enough. That is what was his calculation, right? So now let's go to the next video and let's find out what happened next in the story.